Hello, everybody. This is Mondays with Wallace. I am Wallace Peoples. Today is May the 14th, 2018. You are live from Los Angeles on Mondays with Wallace. We talk about everything cannabis. Our show is always about cannabis. We speak typically about cannabis. I'm not really a cannabis user, but I am an expert in cannabis. And the reason I'm an expert in cannabis is, of course, I'm a clinical pharmacist. But the reason I am an expert in cannabis is because of you, the people that call me, the people that I speak to, and the people that actually share their information with me. We've had a number of really good shows. I'm really happy with our show, and I'm happy for all the people that actually get with me. We're going to talk today about growing cannabis. Cannabis is something that we can actually grow. It's a really nice plant to grow, and growing cannabis is something that is legal in many parts of the country. It is not illegal in California or Los Angeles, which is where we are coming from. We are going to speak today with a number of people. We have people that are calling us from Ohio. We have people from Los Angeles. We have people from Georgia. We have people from Elizabeth, New Jersey. And we're going to get some ideas from you all about cannabis and growing cannabis. As you all know, I am a board-certified pharmacist. Not really conservative. I'm not really for or against it. We just want you all to be knowledgeable about cannabis. We always provide you with the numbers for poison control, which is 800-222-1222. You also are welcome to phone in. Our phone in number is 424-227-9461. It's going to be a good day. All of our shows have been good shows. Some of our previous shows were speaking about the NBA and the three-point shot. I was somewhat disappointed, and I still remain disappointed about the NBA and how they've become very reliant on their three-point shot. One of our previous shows was the NBA high scoring and boring, and I got a lot of flack from my listeners because people seem to dismiss the fact that the NBA has relied on the three-point shot. One thing you'll notice from yesterday's show, the Cleveland Cavs, they lost to Boston. One thing that everyone's speaking about is during the press conference, LeBron James was able to actually discuss exact detail what had transpired in the game that he had played where they had lost. And that was just remarkable. And that just went to show you LeBron is not smoking weed. And I don't know anyone that knows LeBron, but I'll guarantee you, when you have that type of memory, when you have that type of recall, typically you're not smoking weed. So let's get on with our show. We're going to talk about growing weed and actually having weed in your house or at your building or at your unit. And we have on the line with us, do we have anyone on the line with us today? We have on the line with us from Ohio, Mr. Mike. Mike, are you with us today?
Yes, I am.
Oh, Mike, thank you. We really appreciate your being able to be with us and speak on our show. This is Mondays with Wallace. We're a bit of a think tank program. We're live from Los Angeles, and we are on the Voices, Power of Voices radio network. We also stream on Mondays with Wallace. It's Mondays. You are with Wallace. So if you're growing at your property or if you're building, how do you prevent people from stealing your marijuana? That I've heard is a huge problem, Mike.
Well, yeah, it's a huge problem, That's why, they have places for medical purpose only. They keep it that way because for recreational use, we got people here in Ohio that are actually stealing it and getting shot over it.
Ooh, getting
ridiculous. Shot. Yeah.
Wow, I'm not really a gun guy. So if someone steals your marijuana in Ohio, now Ohio is not, marijuana is not legal in Ohio.
No.
So if someone steals your marijuana in Ohio, how do you call the police?
You usually call them afterwards. You know, I mean, it's really gotten bad, and it wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't just cannabis, but people are actually lacing it.
Really? And what would you be lacing the cannabis with?
Well, for example, they got what they call here in Ohio, they call waterheads. And what that is they take the cannabis when they dry it out, and they spray it with formaldehyde to intensify the euphoria feeling.
Is that right? Now, I don't know, so I'm going to have to ask you, and I apologize if you don't mind me asking you, do you smoke? Do you not smoke? I don't smoke.
No, I do not. I'm, other than for medical purposes, I'm for it. But other than recreational, non-medical, absolutely not. The reason I'm against it is I had a friend in high school that got into a situation purchasing some. It went bad, and he ended up getting shot over it, and he's no longer with us.
Actually getting shot, and he died, unfortunately. So he lost his life over marijuana. Well, that's really unfortunate.
Over what they call a dime bag. I mean, is it really worth it?
Oh, of course not. I've never really been a fan, and although I've been around people that have smoked, and I seem to get a little nausea from it, and I'll tell you, Mike, that has been on the rise of late. People really getting a medical, or actually a marijuana-induced nausea, whereas they're constantly vomiting. I wonder, Ohio is just a really plush area because there's a lot of rainfall. I wonder, does marijuana grow nicely there?
I really couldn't tell you. I know there's an abundance of it around.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, law enforcement here in Ohio, they just turn a blind eye to it because, I mean, there's just so much of it.
Really? Do you feel it's a program that's got out of control, or do you feel that...
it's definitely gotten out of control. I mean, when you get, like I said, if you got people actually, teenagers and that, shooting each other over $25 worth of marijuana and stuff, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really, really, really unfortunate. We have a lot of area where you can actually grow something like a marijuana, and I know it needs a lot of water, but the plant itself grows really nicely. Typically, you need a lot of sunlight, though. So one thing that has always concerned me, and I think it's concerned a lot of people, is when you grow it, you have to grow it in a fairly covert way, and it requires a lot of lights. So, yeah, I know you help manage properties, and we're concerned about people growing it. Is there a way that you can actually see people that are growing the marijuana and they're actually growing it? Because you need high intensity lamps. I think the lamps have to be. I'm sorry.
Usually, if we see a extremely high jump in an electric utility for an address, extremely high jump, then chances are they're running grow lights. And they do the hydroponics and that.
Exactly. The grow lights are 600 watt, or at least it's recommended that you grow 600 watt or 1,000 watt lights. And do you see a lot of people actually stealing their neighbors' electricity?
Oh, they'll steal it from the meters and stuff. They've actually gone and stolen meters and switched them to different addresses and used them so it comes up as a different address on that meter.
I see. Now, that's something that I know that's a challenge to do, but is that very difficult to do, to steal a meter?
Absolutely. No, not at all.
Is that right? Is that right? Well, so I'm wondering, how long would it take? Because when I get my electrical reading, I've seen at my various properties. I have a couple of properties. I've actually seen a rise in my electricity bill. However, I haven't really seen a rise in my appliances, and I've seen at one of our properties, I've seen my electrical bill go from $50 to $60 to $200 or $300. Do you think that would indicate that someone's stealing electricity?
I would say if it went up $200 to $300, definitely.
Do you call the police? Who would you call?
I would at that time. I would just basically, I'd do as a maintenance or landlord. I would just do a random inspection, and you can detect if there's something going on.
Yeah.
I mean,
usually in.
This,
I'm sorry, please.
Okay. People that do this, as you know, they tend to get forgetful on things. So they tend to leave things laying around that sort of stand out.
Yeah. Well, boy, I sure thank you. So, I guess we're seeing the theft, and we're seeing a lot of people growing. I wonder how much can you grow in an apartment?
It depends on how much space you got.
So
a
dime bag. You had mentioned a dime bag, which a dime I'm going to imagine is $10.
Well, back in the day it was, but now it's probably much more.
Okay, all right. Well, in any other ideas about marijuana? Sorry, you're against it.
I think they need to regulate it a little better. I think there needs to be more government funding, to really crack down on it, because it's just really becoming an epidemic as far as the illegal purpose, distribution of it.
Well,
or at least educate the people, what the possibilities of this stuff is, because you never, when you light one up, you don't know what's been sprayed on it or in it.
Yeah. There's a couple different types of marijuana. When you grow marijuana, there is, and I didn't know this. I just recently learned this. There's a male versus a female plant. And did you know this, by the way?
No, I did not.
I didn't know this either. But the male plants are essentially useless, and you have to get the female plants. We have on the line with us another guest. His name is John. John is from Los Angeles. John, are you with us?
Yes, I am. How you doing?
John, I'm doing good. Los Angeles is really a remarkable place. And if anyone knows the area that I live in, John, I have to say, is using an alias name. And since John is using an alias name, I get to poke at John a little bit, because one thing with celebrities, anyone that has friends that are celebrities are the worst. They're the worst. They want everything free. They want to be anonymous. You grow weed. They don't want to grow weed, but they want some. They always come to the party. They never have anything. Juan, is that you?
No, that's not me, sir.
That's not you, John. Okay, all right. I'll say that's not you. But they're the worst. They have the nice cars. Everything's free. In fact, with John, I was gonna have John in studio, and John's not in studio. And I'm thankful John's not in studio, because John wanted M&Ms that were red only. I'm telling you, these are celebrities for you, and that's LA for you. That's how LA is. And I love you, and I love you for that. So we were talking about marijuana, John, yes. And we were speaking about the different plants. There's the indica, and there's the sativa, and I just recently learned from that the males versus female plants.
Right.
And the male plants are of no usefulness at all. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, they serve a different purpose. Males, you would think they're more for, for multiplying, for seeding, pollinating the female plants, and then therefore you would get more seeds instead of buds from the female plants, and that's pretty much what you smoke. What you smoke is not the actual leaves that we all seen in movies, posters. The green leaf with the 7 fingers. It's not that. It's the actual bud that you smoke. And just as you were saying, there's a sativa and the indica. The indica is more of a mellow high, and the sativa is more of a being alert, but still being high. But saying high, don't think as, oh, he's high on drugs. It's more like you're low on you're more in a mellow state.
Yeah. Do you find if you're able, if you smoke, and I'm not going to ask you if you smoke or don't smoke, but if
Right.
you're in entertainment, and if you're one of those people that come to the party that don't bring anything, and you need their whole red M&M thing, are you finding you can be efficient on sativa or indica, or is it better? I had always heard that sativa more or less created a little more paranoia, and indica
Exactly.
was more of a calm. Is that wrong or right?
Yeah, the thing is that, okay, so your sativa is more of a, you can say, an upper. It stimulates a little bit more, and so therefore you get a little bit more of that paranoia feeling because it's more of an upper. It's more like being on too much caffeine. You get those little jitters. And say you smoke indica, it's more of a mellow high, and so therefore you're more calm, you're more chill. So it's knowing what works for you best, and knowing what your body can tolerate, and being able to enjoy your high instead of being all jittery and paranoid out.
Hmm. If you were to not, and I'm not recommending anyone because I don't smoke, but if we were to recommend someone to, let's say we're returning from, let's say, Vietnam, or let's say the conflict in the Persian Gulf, if you were to recommend one to those people, either a sativa or an indica to help, which would you recommend?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt, it will have to be an indica. Let's put it like this. Someone that wants to work in a hostile environment, and you still want to be mellowed out. You'll probably smoke a sativa. Because you still need to be active. Someone that's more like, maybe their occupation is more mellow, it's more chill, more like an artistic figure, then you would probably smoke something that's more of a downer, which is going to be your indica.
Hmm. Hmm. I'll tell you. Back to the growing, our show, and you're on Mondays with Wallace. We're on every Mondays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Anyone that calls in, our phone number is 424-227-9461. So, I have daughters and I have a family, and I hope
Right.
you have a family too. So I'm trying to discern to my daughters the whole thing about
Right.
the value of males and male plants. So are male plants of any value whatsoever?
Of course they are. They pretty much, any strain, even a female, will give you seeds. A male is going to pollinate the female. It's going to give you more seeds, and it's what you're looking for. Maybe if you want a certain kind of strain, you're probably going to have to separate the male from the females, or else it's going to pollinate the entire colony of female plants, and then therefore you're going to have nothing but seeds instead of bud. So it's what you're trying to get, and the purpose of you growing. If it's for personal use, if it's for maybe having a picnic and sharing it with your buddies. You don't want to just have lots of seeds there. So
Sure.
it's what you're looking for. And I mean it's something I want to say. It's just kind of like this whole classification of marijuana. Marijuana is classified as a Schedule 1 drug.
You're right, it is.
It serves no medical purpose. But the thing is that how did it came to be in that classification as a Class 1? Who categorized it, and why was it so available to the public, even being as a Class 1? And you also got to look at if you get caught with it, what happens? Since it's still a Class 1, are you still being a criminal if you were to get caught with heroin? Because it's still a Class 1 heroin.
Yeah.
So you have to look at it like that. You have to look at it, well, maybe it was a generation thing. Older people will probably look at marijuana as, as they were raised up to look at it, as something that's bad. It's a drug that gets you high, or it has a bad stigma to it. But this new generation, they look at weed, nothing like the older generation. So I think within time, it's going to get reclassified, and that's when it's going to serve, people are going to start looking at it a little bit more differently, and it's going to be more acceptable.
I really have to admit, when I embarked upon this podcast, I was fairly against it, and I think the feeling was when you saw, do you remember the old Scooby-Doo commercials, the
Right.
Scooby-Doo program? I thought that basically marijuana, and I think I'm wrong about it. And as I get to know people that are really productive, and I'm getting the feeling that you are very productive. But as I find people that are very productive, my feeling is that it will change, and it is changing. I've certainly changed my disposition, wherein I still don't smoke. I'm not really a fan of smoking, but there seems
Right.
to be a population out there that is really benefiting from it. I don't know if you can use it to treat things like pain, though. I'm not sure if it's going to be for that. Do you feel it can be for that?
Well, there's already medication that has certain ingredients from marijuana, such as the THC component in it that is used in dronabinol. And that's used mainly for people who are under the chemotherapy right now.
Yeah.
So that pretty much calms their nausea, being nauseous. Anyone that has AIDS will take that medication to stimulate appetite.
I have seen that, and you're right about that, and so I accept that premise.
Exactly, and there's always going to be someone that's going to be against marijuana, maybe because it's going to hurt their market value. The only person or the only company I can think of will be pharmaceutical companies. Because if people can grow their own medication at home instead of paying hundreds and thousands of dollars on these medication that has severe side effects, which ones are you going to take? Let's say you're a cancer patient, and they tell you, okay, well, we're going to give you this pill, but it's gonna have severe side effects, and it's going to give you this, and that. And there's going to be an alternative treatment, which is growing your own medication at home, and that's marijuana. Which one are you going to choose?
Well, in this particular case, marijuana would seem like the intelligent option. The only problem that I have is, for one thing, you have to be fairly knowledgeable about what you have. You seem to be knowledgeable, but how do you know if you have a sativa plant or indica plant? And
that's very simple. There's certain strains. And with certain strains, I'm not a master in marijuana by any means, but there's certain strains that will be, okay, just if you go to a weed shop right now, they're going to have their indicas on this side of the shelf and their sativas on the other side,
Right.
And the only problem that we're having right now is that you can't really detect the strength in milligrams of the ingredient that's going to get you high in that specific strain. So it's kind of like this is the wrong side that I see. It's kind of like having a bottle of pills, but you really don't know how many pills you're supposed to take. It's not like you're going to overdose on them, but there's not really a limit because it doesn't really tell you the strength in that particular strain.
So how do we fix that? How do you, because that's that is my concern. My concern, and a lot of it has to do with the present Trump administration, the Sessions administration, not wanting to step in and regulate it. But how will we ever be able to know what's strong or not strong or what's beneficial? And the reason that I'm really, to be really frank with you, I am hesitant. Of course, I'm a federal worker, so I'm subject to drug testing. So I don't want to smoke for that one reason, but I'm also frightened. I'm afraid that if I do smoke, there's a chance that I'll just go delirious because it's not something that my body's accustomed to. In the past, you know what I've taken. I've tried I had a friend of mine, unfortunately, who had cancer, and he had given me a cookie, or a cookie or a
Right.
brownie, and I didn't eat it, but I actually I didn't really share it, but someone else ate it, and I thought they were going to lose their mind. So
Right. You know.
how do you
Yeah.
so how do you protect me, or how do you suggest that I protect myself if I want to actually try it?
Right, and see, and that's the thing, with these edibles, the strength and the THC component in them, it's really hard to tell. It's like saying, a person that drinks, oh, I'm good with 3 beers, I'm good with 4 beers, or I'm good with 2 shots of tequila. With these, you can't really measure an edible. It's almost like saying if we're gonna smoke a joint, it's gonna say, I'm good with only 2 or 3 puffs. So. And that's the big issue right now is actually finding the strength. But I don't think it's that difficult. It would just have to go to the lab and be tested, and then from there, pretty much bring it into market where this strain will carry this much milligrams of THC.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's individually packaged, and the consumer is going to be more aware of what works for them and what doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
And so that's. In my eyes, that's what I think will work best when it's labeled properly, and people can actually, try it and see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. John, stay with us. Mike, are you still with us?
Yes.
Mike, how do you prevent someone from stealing from you?
Ooh. Oh. Unfortunately, if they're going to steal, they're going to steal unless you catch them, and then it's the last time they steal.
John, I got to ask you, do people can you call the police if someone steals your marijuana? If I'm growing marijuana plants and someone comes in and they clean out all my plants, can we call the police?
Yeah, that's almost like, I can see where you're going with that, but, they're still pretty much coming into your property. That's already breaking the law. Now, if they steal something you're not supposed to have, well, right now it's not illegal to have, marijuana growing in your home. You can grow up to 6 plants in your home right now.
Oh, is it 6 plants?
Yeah,
is that right?
Yes, it's up to 6 plants, and so you can technically call the cops, and it is a crime to steal, cross into your property, and so you can definitely call the cops in the state of California for that.
If we put a value on a marijuana plant, and I'm going to accept whatever value you take, whatever value you give, how much is a plant worth, and how tall does a plant grow?
Well, it all depends. There's different variations of plants. There's clones. There's some plants that pretty much produce a lot of buds. The quality of the bud, and it's broken down. Just think about it as an alcohol. You have a Budweiser, or you'll have a Heineken. Of course, the Budweiser is going to be a little bit cheaper than the Heineken, and so you have to pretty much look at it like that. The quality of the plant, how much it, and how much you can make out of it. It's all determined on the quality of the weed. That's all it is.
I'm going to reach out to all of our listeners. If anyone has a cognac of marijuana, I'd like to know what that is. Is there a superior plant? Is there? I do remember in the past, being exposed to marijuana, and the product today is so pure, or it seems to be pure. Is there? And it probably has to do with gene splicing. Is there a better plant?
Well, there's different strains, and now pretty much from what I hear, the younger generation, they're manipulating the way you get the THC out of the plant.
The way you get the what? I'm sorry, I apologize for our listeners.
THC out of the plant, so
I
you
see.
can, after kind of like manipulating the way you're gonna get the ingredient out, it's gonna be a lot more potent, and so there's something called a wax. Now I'm not really familiar with that. I like the old school stuff where it's just the butts, and I actually can smoke it and light it on fire. But there's other stuff. There's other ways of getting THC out of a marijuana plant instead of just smoking the butts. So But yeah, I mean, it's there's different strains right now that will work for you. You know, I think one of my favorite ones is the Purple Kush.
Say again,
And,
the
you
Purple
know,
Kush.
Purple Kush, and that's more of an indica. It's very mellow. It gives you a perfect high. You know, the problem is that there's so many growers, so you can have a Purple Kush in a different kind of city, and you go to San Diego, they have a different Purple Kush. Not really the same. It's not really the same plant. It has the same name, but you know, it's gonna work for you differently when you light it up.
I see. Now, when you see marijuana, marijuana is most of the advertisement. Even if you look at my advertisement on my page, there's the marijuana plant, and that's the
Right.
leafy plant. Is that what we smoke, or do we smoke the buds, or what part of the
Yeah.
marijuana do we typically smoke? Is it the
Yeah, you're not gonna
stems?
smoke. Yeah, no. You're not gonna smoke the stems. The thing is that the marijuana leaf, it's been seen by millions of people around the
Correct.
world. So
Exactly.
it's easily to identify it with what that is. The bud, it's just like think about it as a flower, you know, and so it's more like a bushy, circular bud that you would see, and that's what you're gonna smoke. The leaf actually has really no purpose, not unless you decide to rub it all together, and then that's how you will make hashish out of a plant, you know. And but you need so many leaves just to make a small amount of hashish.
I see. So what part? And forgive me for not being knowledgeable. So the part that you smoke, and you grow your plant. Okay, so you grow your plant, and your plant grows,
Right.
and your plant is ready for harvest. The plant,
Right.
the part that you're looking to harvest is
The bud.
the
The
buds,
bud.
and the
Right.
buds are, and
So
they're little things that they're flowers essentially.
exactly. It's going to be almost like let's say it's going to look like a little cotton ball, and it's going to have little hairs. It can have distinguished colors as purple. That will be your Purple Kush. It can have orange hairs. It can have, you know, red hairs. It all depends on the strain, and you can actually, we can go back. You can always tell when the plant is growing if it's going to be a male or a female. It's gonna pretty much grow some little stems, which is either gonna have it's gonna look like two little tentacles, or it's gonna have a single tentacle, and then that's how you can distinguish if it's gonna be a male plant or a female plant. You cannot determine if it's gonna be a male or a female just by looking at the seed. You actually have to grow it, look, and just wait to see if it's gonna give you that one little hair or those two little hairs, to see if it's going to be a male or a female plant.
Wow, that's
Right.
that's
I mean,
remarkable.
yeah.
That's
So there's so
remarkable.
much to it. Yeah, like, you know, you got to have your proper light. You got to have proper soil. You know, proper amount of water. So the reason you're saying it's a lot stronger now is because there's more research on how to grow it better. It's manipulating pretty much the environment, giving it the ultimate best environment where it can really flourish, grow faster, and grow stronger, you know? So, and that's the reason strains are stronger now, and also because of selective breeding. So you're going to select your best crops and continue evolving your best crop, and of course it's going to get stronger. So the weed that was probably being smoked in the 60s and 70s, you can't compare it to the weed from now.
Yeah, I absolutely can't compare it from now. I can't compare it today because it just seems so strong, and it's to me it's frightening almost. You know, I'd like, although I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of smoking, but is there let's say the soil? Is it difficult to grow marijuana if I toss seeds in the soil? You know, Jack and the Beanstalk. Whereas you toss
Right.
them out the window, are they pretty? Do they grow readily, or do you really have to nurture them? Obviously, anything you'd have to nurture, but is this something that you can grow easily, or?
Well, if you can't just throw it in a soil where there's going to be nothing but shade. There has to be sun there, and also you can't have it in an area where it's going to be continuously being flooded. And it has to have, also, the climate matters a lot.
You say the climate matters a lot?
Right. If it's going to be snowing, of course it's not going to grow. It's more of a tropical plant, so it needs plenty of sun. Cold will do a lot worse than heat, and it's just kind of like growing a plant. You need to properly take care of it. But yeah, it can flourish almost anywhere, as long as it's some plants are a little bit more stubborn than others to grow, and yes, it can definitely flourish.
So in Ohio, Mike is in Ohio. Is that a place you cannot grow outside?
No, there's plenty of places to grow outside.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I do building maintenance and that and groundskeeping, and I've actually come across plants out in the woods here.
In Ohio, you've come across plants in the woods?
Yes.
So if you know, Mike, what is the life cycle of a plant? How long does a plant, or maybe John will know, what's the life cycle of a marijuana plant from seed to the point where you can smoke it? Is it months or is it years? Is this plant a plant that... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it'll take several months for it to properly mature. Then you also got to give it proper time to, dry out, cultivation, and then after that, it's pretty much making sure that the buds dry out properly. There can be problems with mold if you don't cut the leaves that you have in your head. If you don't cut those leaves, and it doesn't have the proper temperature to dry out properly, it can collect mold, and then essentially that's all waste.
Yeah. In Ohio, there's an abundant deer population. If you were to, let's say you were to eat a plant, like a marijuana plant or either sativa, or would you actually get high by just eating the plant? Is that something you can do, or does the plant have to be cured, or does it have to be dried, or can you just eat the plant? Like if my deer, or let's say my dog or cat, ate a marijuana plant, would they get high?
Yes, if it has buds in it, yes, of course they're gonna feel the effect. You're taking it to a different route. You can eat it or you can smoke it. It's kind of like Tylenol. It can come in a suppository form, where if it goes into your intestinal tracts, your body's going to absorb it a lot quicker. Also, like an IV. So there's different formats of how you can take drugs into your body. Smoking it is the best way to get high off of weed.
So when I hear the phrase "someone's blowing smoke up your ass," that's not marijuana, right?
No, that's not.
I do know here in Ohio. Like I say, I do come across the plants periodically out here where I'm at. And usually shortly after I come across them, within 24 hours, the plants are usually dug up and moved.
Is that right? Is that right?
Yes. The people around here keep a very close eye on them. But, it does go to reason. Now John there explained, about the deer and that. So that sort of explains why the deer have been so laid back and chilled when I walk out here.
Yeah. Well, they've actually been culling the deer. And, during hunting season, deer are fairly knowledgeable. Even during hunting season, you won't even see deer anywhere. You can't get close to them. So I just wonder, what about the soil? Does the soil matter? Is there a better? Obviously, it can't have too much hydration, too much water. But is the soil something you have to treat? Does it constantly require nutrients, or is it okay with the nutrients that are there? Is there a particular thing you like to grow? I mean, there's things like Miracle-Gro. Would that be satisfactory to grow marijuana, you think?
I don't. Is that question is for me or for?
Oh, either you guys.
I would not know.
You would not know. Oh,
You know,
go ahead, please.
I think it's just it's basically any plant has to have a strong root system. So of course, if it has soil with a good amount of nutrition value in that soil, and if you put even more, such as a fertilizer, of course that root system is going to be stronger. Therefore, you're going to have a stronger plant. Now, if you have control light, control temperature, you have a really good soil with really good fertilizer. Of course, that plant's going to be a lot more potent. So it's real simple. I mean, it's just kind of like common sense. But some plants do really good. It all depends on the zone that you're in that particular part of Earth. There's certain kind of climate that dominates that area. So it might flourish in some parts in the world, and it won't in others. So if you can control for what it likes the best, lighting, water, soil, of course you can always manipulate, how fast it's going to grow and how strong the plant's going to be.
I see. And how would you'd obviously you'd want your plant to grow as fast as possible, and you would give it more light, or you would give it more water, or you would what would you give it more of?
I think it's just a balance of giving it the best of everything. So you give it, sufficient lighting. You always give it, LED lights. You want to give it a good drainage system. You want to have proper soil, and then it's going to flourish if you can control the environment that's in it.
I know this isn't a fair question, so you may not be able to answer this. But so I grow strawberries in my yard, in my garden. I also grow cabbage. I also grow tomatoes. And I know, can you say, is it similar to any of those? So growing marijuana with my tomatoes, I take them out, but some years they still regrow. Is that the same? Will marijuana continue to regrow? Or do you have to change the plant every year? Is it an annual?
It's a seasonal plant. So yeah, there might be some where you cut off the plant off, and then it won't grow anymore. But if you do get some seeds that just happen to fall, or the root system is still strong enough where it can still shoot out another stem out there, yes, it can still definitely grow again.
Mm-hmm. And
Wallace?
Yes, please.
Sorry to bother you.
No, you're no bother. I'm thankful for. By the way, this is before we go on. Just give me a second. This is Mondays with Wallace. I'm a board-certified pharmacist. We talk every Mondays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time about marijuana. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, as a maintenance guy, I'm on call, so when I get a call in, I have to go. I just got beeped. So
I thank you. Our show is going to be wrapping up soon, though. We'll say goodbye to you, and I sure appreciate you. And we have just a fantastic show. And both of my guests today, John, who will be anonymous, and Mike, we really appreciate you all. John, what were you saying about the plant? Is it similar to a tomato, a strawberry? And you got to pick one. A tomato, a strawberry, or what other plant, if you grow any other plants, would you say it's similar to? It's an annual plant. It's seeds.
Right.
And tomato?
I wouldn't really, well, if you want to classify it as the quality of, what grows best in your house, it's kind of like almost saying, I know I know what I'm eating, right? Because I know what kind of soil you're using. You know whether you're using any kind of pesticide to kill any bugs around there. You pretty much plant it from seed, so you know what you're putting into your body. Now, if you have the option of growing your own plant at home, it's going to be through trial and error. You're going to see what works for you, what didn't work for you. And after a while, you're going to be pretty knowledgeable about what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. with your plants. And so it all determines on pretty much on your knowledge. And you know, you can see many stuff on YouTube. It's on the internet. You can always do a little bit of research of what what's the best way to grow a marijuana plant in your home.
Yeah. Lately, there's been a bit of a shortage of the actual legal marijuana. And the reason there's a shortage of the actual legal marijuana is because some of the processes, some of the certification processes, they found that the marijuana actually has some pesticides or a higher level of pesticides that is banned because it's somewhat harmful. Is there a
Right.
pesticide that you would recommend or use, or do you use pesticides? With my
You
strawberries, there's always a little bug that's fairly
right,
consistent with
right,
strawberries, and it's alarming to me because I would like to use pesticides,
right.
or is there smart to use things like beetle, ladybugs or praying mantises? For pesticides, do you have a favorite thing that you use, or do you don't use pesticides at all?
You know, I haven't grown plants to the point where I need to use any kind of pesticide, but you know, I am sure that there's always and another option of just go to your regular pesticide. I'm pretty sure there's an organic formula that you can use to deter insects or bugs from getting into your marijuana plant. So I will look at that route instead of just giving you something that you can buy at Home Depot. I would go with a formula that's organic, so you won't. You're a little bit more aware of what you're spraying onto your plant, and also be a little bit more calm when you decide to either smoke it or eat it.
Yeah. In Los Angeles, we because our climate is warm here, we actually have some pesticides, malathion, that's available. And if you ever have scabies, there's a drug product that's called Nix, which Nix is permethrin. Some of
Okay.
the compounds that are available that I think people actually swear by are permethrin types, or they're called perithians type pesticides, and you can consume them. They are safe, but for the most part, the FDA will very possibly frown upon them, although that's what people are using for pesticides. Are there pests that typically would be harmful to are there pests that eat marijuana plants?
Well, you know, it's just kind of like a plant that it almost seems like it just grows out of it naturally, or something that's it's attract maybe the aroma that it sends out, and it attracts a certain kind of bug. But if you're if you're being a little bit paranoid about pesticides, and if you're a smoker and you're smoking cigarettes, I mean, you already know what you're putting into your body is poisonous. Now, if you
Hmm.
decide to grow a marijuana plant at home, and you know what kind of soil you have in your home, and what kind of water you're using for it, and if you decide to use pesticide or not, then I would say that it's not going to attract so many bugs because it's not giving you a fruit will usually become old and it rot. That's going to affect like a fly. So,
Yeah.
and flies land on on a duck poop, or in a garbage, and then into your fruit vegetable, and they'll probably leave kind of it'll contaminate your fruit or vegetables. Now with
Hmm.
weed, it's not gonna be a fruit. It's a rot. So it's still gonna be fresh. And I've never really seen flies ban on marijuana, or to eat the bud. So it's always been in a controlled environment, and but I think you got to be just a little bit more aware of where you're going to put your marijuana plant. You might not want to put it next to your tomatoes, or
I see.
if you have some kind of a fruit tree. You might want to put a little bit to the corner where it's away from all that stuff.
So after you cut it, let's say you have marijuana. how long can you keep it? Can you keep it an extended period of time? Let's say you're ready to smoke it, and you've taken the buds. Now we've already learned that you don't smoke the leaves, but you smoke the buds. And we've already learned that there's male versus females, and you typically are smoking the females. Is that correct?
Right.
So how long can you keep the buds? If you, let's say you keep it under, you keep it at home, and is there a lifespan to it? Is there expiration period?
Right. It's just like any drug in the market. It's going to have an expiration date because it loses its potency. So
I see.
You can always, right. So you can always look at your buds. If you properly cut them and cultivate them, they're going to be very sticky, very moist.
Oh, is that right?
You don't want it, You don't want it to be too moist. If you close it, that's going to create mold. Mm-hmm. So you want to leave it out for a few days so it can dry out properly. It all depends also on the plant. If you have some kind of a plant that's very sticky, don't think that's water. That's just going to be the stickiness of the bud. So you want to, after a while, I would say if you don't smoke your bud after maybe 2 months or so, it's going to look very, very dry, very crispy. You can still smoke it, but it's not going to have that high potency that it had when it was in proper time for you to smoke it.
I see. So when you store it, would you actually store it in a dry condition? You would store it. Would you store it in a pressed in a book or something, or how would you store it?
You want to put it in a container, preferably glass container that's air shut. I would keep it in an area where it's room temperature, away from the sun.
You said away from the sun.
Away from the sun, and so it won't dry out, and just keep it fresh. There's no need for you to put it in the refrigerator. Or
you say do not put it in the refrigerator?
You don't have to put it in the refrigerator. You wouldn't need to put it in the refrigerator. Just keep it in a cool room temperature environment, away from the sun, in a glass bottle.
Could you freeze it?
Could you freeze it? I'm pretty sure you can freeze it. I am sure of it. I've never done it, but I'm sure you can do it. I'm sure you can freeze it. Whether the potency is just as good as it was when you cut it, that's something I haven't done. You will probably have to do some research on that and see if that works for you or not.
No, that's very interesting. Well, we'll have to find out if that's something we can do. It's exceptionally interesting. Well, I sure appreciate you as a guest. You've been just a wonderful guest for us. We had really had some of our listeners take issue with some of our position on NBA players smoking marijuana. I believe one of the Matt Barnes, I believe, he had claimed that NBA players are smoking weed, and it's quite common. Let me ask you this. I believe you play basketball. Can a John smoking weed beat a John who's not smoking weed?
Well, if they're in the same skill level, I would say the person that's smoking weed will probably have a disadvantage, mainly because you're putting smoke into your lungs. When you're exercising, you need oxygen. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're putting smoke in there, you're pretty much handicapping yourself to have that endurance to, be at a good pace. So, yeah, you wouldn't smoke. Marijuana is not, you could do it just for fun, but you wouldn't smoke weed to get an upper advantage on your opponent. You would smoke weed after you're done, mainly for recovering purposes. And that's what some people use it for. It's for recovering purposes. And not so much as a pre-workout or, it wouldn't stimulate. It's not a stimulator at all as far as giving you a physical advantage. It might give you a mental advantage.
Oh, you feel there's a mental advantage to smoking? Maybe making you a little more relaxed or...
well, if you're more calm, more at ease, you're more artistic. You become more. You use more of your imagination. When you smoke marijuana. At least for myself, I can say that it the way it works for me best. The way I like to do it is just do it when I'm, if I had a hard day at work. It helps me to calm down. It helps me with my anxiety, with my stress. We're human, so we all have emotions. We all deal with it differently. The best way for some people is some people take antidepressants. Some people take, maybe two shots, two cans of beer or so. Some people, there's many ways. It's just what works best for you. And some people really don't know until they try it that marijuana is not what they think it was. It's something that's going to become a lot more. People are going to become more open-minded about it as the years come along, as the older generation gets out of the office. And it's kind of sad to say, but as they die off, there's going to be a new image, a new way we're going to look at marijuana, and it's going to be more acceptable. And it's going to be almost as if having a glass of wine, where you swirl the wine inside the the glass to smell the aroma, to look at the color. In years from now, we're gonna be doing the same thing with marijuana, where we're gonna be looking at the bud, smelling it, and talking about how we grew it, and it's gonna be more of a social acceptance. How can I say this? More of an acceptance in the public eye to just hang around, smoke some weed, and have a little cookout, or after work, you go to a certain area, you smoke weed. It's going to be more acceptable as the years come along, for sure.
Well, I certainly think that attitudes are changing. I heard you say as they die off. Who dies off? Are you guys going to call the herd here? Am I in trouble here? Is there something? Is someone coming for me?
What I refer to is just the generation that decided to classify marijuana as a Schedule I drug. How that came to be, I do not know. Why it's been in there for so long, I do not know. But what I do know is that, the good thing is that I'm a little bit confused about how the federal law works and how the state law works, where it can be still illegal during, under federal law, but the states can always work around their own way, their own jurisdiction of how they decide to, manage and govern marijuana. And so, that's an issue right there, because if it's still illegal, if it's still classified, and this is the thing that gets to me the most, if it's still classified as a Schedule I, and it's along with heroin and cocaine, why would the federal government still let it pass by state law to be able to be sold? And not only sold now, it's actually, it's now actually illegal. You can have it for recreational purposes here in the state of California. If it was that severe, if it was that serious, why is it still under a Class 1?
I agree, and I think it probably has to do with becoming more knowledgeable. There is an abundance of information on cannabis and marijuana, and it's something that I've even just really noticed. So I think you're going to probably find that as people become more knowledgeable, as there's more acceptance, and as we see more people, even like yourself, who are really productive members of society. I believe you own a home. Do you own a home?
Yes, I do.
People that own a home, people have jobs, and people that are actually important to society, and people that actually are making society work. I think as you're finding that these people like yourself, people like myself, people that are, are using marijuana, contributing to society, I think that is where we're going to see the federal government really acknowledge it. Just like today, I don't know if you realized it, but they had ruled that gambling will now be legal. So in every state, you'll be able to wager bets on games, and that was unheard of, just a few years ago. So things are changing, and I think that just being an advocate, you seem to be an advocate, and I'm becoming an advocate for it. Although I like to say I'm on the fence here. I think that that'll probably change a lot. This is Mondays with Wallace. I am Wallace. We're here every Monday on the Power of Voices Radio Network. We are on Facebook, Mondays with Wallace. You can get us on Instagram. You can also get us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We are also on YouTube. I want to thank my guest, Mike, for coming on. I want to thank my guest, John, for coming on. John, if you are in studio, we do once monthly give a Disney pass to our in-studio guests. So if you have a chance to make it in studio, I know you are an artist, and I appreciate you. And we will have your red M&Ms for you next time you're in studio. Our studio is in Culver City. I want to thank Josefa Salinas. She's one of our producers. I am thankful for everyone. We will be back next Monday. Next Monday, I think we're going to talk about actually smoking a joint. We're going to do a whole hour of actually smoking a joint. Is that something that's easy to learn? Is he gone? Okay, well, I guess he's gone. But we're going to actually talk next week about actually smoking a joint. So we're going to spend a whole hour. It's not something I've done. I don't know how to do it, and we're gonna find out. Thank you for being with us. This is Wallace. You are on Mondays with Wallace. Good night, everyone. See you next week.